All right, we're here with girls basketball coach and assistant athletic director Adam Lonon. And Adam, you've been here for 5-6 years now.
5 years.
5 years now. Coached some great teams. Several players playing at the college level now. This year is a little bit different. You don't have any seniors other than Addison, who we just talked to. Really, very limited varsity experience at all. So, just for you, how does that change your approach having such a young group?
Yeah, the biggest thing we talk about with our girls this year, especially, is just growth and development. A lot of the younger girls, like you said, 8th, 9th, 10th graders, haven't played in any varsity game, have no experience playing against that level. So a lot of what we're trying to accomplish this year is just growing their maturity, getting them more confident, getting them understanding the game a little bit better. Like you mentioned with Addie, she's been on the team for 4 years, but for her, she was actually sitting some of those years too behind, like you mentioned, some very good competition that we had on our team. So even for her, understanding her leadership role and what she needs to do on the floor, not only as a leader but also as a scorer and one of the captains of our team, that's important.
Yeah, for sure. You and I were chatting the other day, and you talked about how previous to here, when you were at Stewart, you had some really inexperienced groups and playing some really stiff competition. So you've been there before as a coach, and you've kind of seen it all. You've had teams that competed at the highest level. You've had teams that really took a lot of decisive L's and kind of everything in between. So how do you just feel like your own personal experience in coaching is going to make you well-suited to guide this group?
Yeah, definitely being there before, you understand that it's it could be tough in the moment, but it's something that's not going to be around for forever. And that's kind of what you look at. You kind of understand what it's like to be on the other side of it. With the teams in 2017, 2018, even 2019, those are really talented teams. And it's fun coaching those teams, but sometimes you get lost in terms of the enjoyment of what is actually coaching at the high school level, which is investing in the kids, which is kind of having that family and that camaraderie, and having a group that's very young and inexperienced to where they're looking for you for guidance. You start to appreciate the game a little bit more, to where now it's 100% about the coaching. It's 100% about them understanding and developing their game. And credit to our girls, they come to practice with a joy and a laughter that I'm kind of not used to while being at Trinity, just because our teams have been so competitive. Not to say that they're not competitive, they do work hard, but just in terms of where they're at as 8th, 9th, and 10th graders. So I think going forward is just the understanding that, like I said, it doesn't last forever, and kind of investing time in them and having them let me mentor and tutor them in a way on the court, it's going to pay off later. So.
And, we've talked about the challenges of a young group, and I think everyone can understand that. Let's talk for a minute about the pleasures, I guess you will, of working with a group where it's really, you don't have a whole lot of bad habits to break, because it's just, you're kind of building from scratch. So can you just tell us about what's the most kind of fun part about having almost a brand new team?
I think the biggest thing is just their effort, especially this year. They don't know any different. Sometimes, and even when I got here, you coming to the school with a different culture and girls that have been coached by other coaches that bring a different mindset that might not be your own mindset when you come as a coach. For me, it's a lot of these girls don't know any different. So whatever mindset, whatever culture we set this year, that will be the culture moving forward. So being able to, especially this year, kind of have a determined and concrete culture of what we want to do as a team, and them kind of buying in and kind of having that all the time, that's going to be most important to us. And then on the other side of it too, I think when you have such young girls, it's just the opportunity to literally, for them, they suck up everything. It's literally like a sponge, to where everything you say, good or bad, that's going to stick with them. So on that good side, you try to encourage, you try to make sure that they get more confident in what they're doing, because when they get to those games against some of those better teams that they're not used to playing, but we haven't instilled that courage in them to get out there and that confidence, they're going to lack it for the next 3 or 4 years. So trying to build that now is super important to what we're doing.
And still, obviously, we're really early in the season, but I think we've seen already some young players step up in the games that we were able to see this weekend. And Travis was really impressed with some of the freshmen and 8th graders. So I think you're right. You're already planting those seeds that are going to pay off down the line. Now, I have to say, though, the schedule. I mean,
Yes.
with schools like Stab, St. Gertrude, I know you got Flint Hill coming up. You played in a very impressive Catholic team in the Travis championship game. So how do you maintain confidence when you know there's going to be some nights where you're playing teams that, just in terms of size, experience, and skill level, may be at a different level?
It's tough, to be honest with you. And every young preteen, especially a preteen girl, they're different in terms of what they're battling with. And I think the biggest thing is just constantly showing them support and constantly encouraging them. A lot of the times with what we do in practice, we get them to understand that we're going to have 4, 5, 6 games to where it could be a 30 or 40 point loss. But then on the other side of the schedule, we have a few games that if we go out and we play hard and with effort and play defense how we've kind of been taught in practice, those are games we can easily win to kind of even out those tough games you're talking about. Like you said, though, with 8th, 9th, and 10th graders, you want them to have that fun experience. And sometimes those games where you get beat by 30 or 40 points, those aren't very fun, but that's part of sport. So you kind of explain that to them also to where, hey, you know, guys, there's going to be situations where you're going to run up against a team who has 6, 7, 8, 9 great athletes. That's just kind of how it is sometimes. And hopefully we look forward to getting back to that space one day. Probably won't be in the next couple of years, but hopefully with some of these girls when they're juniors or seniors, they're those teams that instead of beating or getting beat by 30 or 40, they're beating teams by 30 or 40. So I think they look forward to that one day too.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks so much for joining us. We're looking forward to being out there for several games this year, broadcasting for TESPN, and just thank you so much for all your work, not just with girls basketball, but all the athletic programs, and really appreciate you taking the time. Thanks, Coach Lonon. Appreciate you.
Absolutely.
Now we're here with junior Addison Winn. And Addison, I think the first thing I just wanted to ask you about, you've been on the varsity team since the 8th grade. You were the youngest player on the team, probably to you seems like not that long ago, and now here you are, the oldest player on the team, captaining a very young group. Can you just talk about the transition, what it's been like to progress and evolve through those years in the program?
It's been kind of hard at first, adapting to playing with older players that are a lot better. But now I've learned to become kind of a leader to the younger girls that are on the team now this year. So, I mean, it was a different transition. It was kind of hard, but it was fun to meet new people.
Yeah, and last winter was obviously so weird. You know, you practiced socially distant skills and drills. Just wasn't necessarily the season you would have hoped for. But now you're back in the gym. It's, you know, more or less normal. Just what's it, you know, how excited are you just to be back out there competing?
I'm very excited to be back to play like competitive basketball again because it's been so long.
And really, I mean, I think you're just about the only player on the team that's really played in a varsity game here in front of fans. I mean, you guys had the one game against Collegiate last year. So I know you must be telling your younger teammates, like, you know, what it's like, that game Friday afternoon in the Travis semifinal full of your peers and students, and probably some people were nervous. So are you just using your experience to try and impart that wisdom to the younger players?
Yes, they have a lot of questions about the varsity games and playing with older players, so I give them some advice about it. But the student section was kind of rare for us. We usually don't have that.
Well, it was good to see. You know, maybe we need some more 2:00 games because that was fun to see all the folks come out for that one. Not to put you on the spot, but just with so many new players in your team, can you mention maybe some girls who've just stood out to you that you've been really impressed with so far?
V. Updike, she's a really good point guard for a 9th grader, and it was fun competing with her now. And Farah, even though she got hurt, she's still a really good player to compete with.
And then just last thing today, Addie, is what are just some goals that you have for the season, maybe for yourself personally, and then also just team goals? You know, we know with such a young group, it's going to be a building year. Might not be the year, you know, to win a state championship, but what are the goals that you have that you hope to see this team accomplish?
Really just get closer as a team and then bond more, and then next year we can come back and see if we can win more games as a team.
All right, well, thanks so much, Addison Winn. Great having you join us. It's amazing how quickly you went from being the youngster on the team to the grizzled veteran. So enjoy this season, and I know you're going to do a great job leading this group of young ladies, and best of luck on the season.